Good day, everyone. I am Teddy E. Delote Jr. We are the Group 2, and we will discuss the self-perspective of anthropology. But before I start, allow me to say that this is for educational use only. Our group is allowing our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardines, to use this as educational material. What is the self in anthropology? The self in anthropology is an individual's human's own person. Some anthropologists think that people develop their sense of self, or even their actual self, through interaction with other humans. The origin of self explores the role that selfhood plays in a defined human society. It considers the genetic and cultural origin of self, the role that self plays in a socialization and language, and the types of self we generate in our individual journeys to and through hood. Edwards argues that other awareness is a relatively early evolutionary development, present throughout the primate clade, and perhaps beyond, but self-awareness is a product of the sharing of social models, something only humans appear to do. The self of whom we are aware is not something innate within us. It is a model of ourself produced as a response to the models offered to us by other people. Edwards purposes that human construction of selfhood involves seeing different types of self. All but one of them are internally generated models. The actual self is a completely hidden from conscious awareness. We rely on others to tell us about ourselves and even to let us know we are a self.
The key anthropological perspectives are holism, relativism, comparison, and fieldwork. There are also both scientific and humanistic tendencies within the disciplines that at times conflict with one another. So, holism is the perspective on the human condition that assumes that mind, body, individuals, society, and environment interpenetrate and even define one another. In anthropology, holism tries to integrate all that is known about human beings and their activities. Relativism is the guiding philosophy of modern anthropology, cultural relativism. The idea that we should seek to understand another person's beliefs and behaviors from the perspectives of their culture rather than our own. Comparison, the act or process comparing such as representing of one thing or person as similar to or like another. Fieldwork is how anthropologists gather data. Fieldwork is a process or immersing oneself as many aspects of the daily cultural lives of people as possible in order to study their behaviors and interactions.
What is an example of anthropology perspective? For example, a cultural anthropologist studying the meaning of marriage in a small village in India might consider local gender norms, existing family networks, laws regarding marriage, religious rules, and economic factors. A biological anthropologist studying monkeys in South America might consider the species' physical adaptation, forging up patterns, ecological condition, and interaction with humans in order to answer questions about their social behaviors. By understanding how non-human primates behave, we discover more about ourselves. Cultural relativism example. Explain why certain cultures eat different food at different meals. For example, traditionally breakfast in the United States is markedly different from breakfast in Japan or Colombia. What are examples of fieldwork in anthropology? Fieldwork is research that takes place away from the laboratory, office, or classroom. The fieldwork site can be a burial ground for ancient Mayan Indians, A fossil site looking for human ancestors in East Africa, or a village where hunter-gatherer people live in the dense forests of Central America. Family members. The most significant features to determine a person's social identity. Example, a person's social identity can be determined based on the influence of his or her family background. Language, viewed as essential for the maintenance of group identity. Example, as a people become members of the social group and learn to share that group identity need to adapt to the group language.
Next is the self and social behavior and differing cultural contexts by Harry Toriandes. In social sciences, anthropology focuses on the study of the culture, the article and basically discussing about the influence of the culture on the self. We have three aspects on the self. First is the private self. It refers to what you think about yourself. For example, you are a loyal friend, smart. And next is the collective self. It refers to what you think you're in groups, those groups who are members of think about you, what your family, friends think you are example. Next is public self. It refers to what people other than you in groups think about you. These are what your neighbors, barangays think about you. Next is the type of culture. First, the homogeneous culture, a type of culture where people observe the same forms, beliefs, and values. Ties in cultures is related because of strong mechanism and making sure members follow the cultural norms. Follow in rural areas and provinces, the community shapes who you are. The aspects of self that dominates here is called collective and public self. Second is the heterogeneous culture, a type of culture wherein people have diverse cultural backgrounds. Loose cultural is related because outside influence can easily come in. Found in urban areas in cities, the influence in internet, televisions, or other forms of mass media influence most. The aspects of self that dominates here is private self, because he can choose on this own. Third is the individualism culture, usually found again in urban areas because people often pursue personal goals. People usually do what they want to do. This, this seldom depends on what others tell them to do or obey. Private self dominates here, usually found in heterogeneous or loose cultures. And the last one is the collectivist culture. People pursue common goals. Hetemo- he- Homogeneous or tight cultures is similar to this. Collective self is here.
Regards from in-group. The more reward, the more the collective self dominates. The lesser rewards or own rewards at all the private self-dominance. Child rearing pattern depends on how you were assessed or nurtured by parents. Some value that are usually encouraged by parents with collectivist preferences are obedience being helpful. On the other hand, some of the value that are usually encouraged by parents with individual representative being independent being yourself. Migration. By moving from place to place, you you won't be able to establish deep relationship with others people in those places. One have transferred on migrate at private self dominates her population. In there more people in population, it is hard to impose a culture culture norm like in culture resulting to the domination of private self. On the other hand, the lesser the population, it much easier to impose a culture norm like immigration culture where collective self allocentric versus idiocentric self. Allocentric self, a self will result to this if one always think about other people say. You always impose the collective and public elements or part of yourself. You must always your parents you have a high self monitoring. You always think on your mind what others say about you and consider this. Idiocentric self, you tend to let yourself not to be controlled by them or by others. You often sample or private parts of elements of yourself to make your own decision. You have low self monitoring. You make decision based on how see or define what you are.
Individualist versus collectivist society. There are two ways in distinguishing these societies, which are the goals and relationship. Goals. People of individualist society pursue personal growth because the main purpose of the individual to adhere something for himself. Whereas in a collectivist society, people pursue collective goals because the main purpose of what they do is to be able to satisfy the needs of everybody or not or of the entire community. Relationship. In an individualist society, people maintain exchange relationship. For example, you bought an expensive item but was broken. The second time you use it, you were not satisfied because the worth didn't match or reflect the quality. Taking this analogy to human relationship, you want equity. People also try to be emotionally detached. Relationships are usually impersonal. For example, when you work, you only work. In a collectivist society, there is a lack of clarify about what is to be exchanged, when and where. You do not compute the value of what you give because you are more concerned about the quality to satisfy your needs and needs of family, community, friends, and act. The relationship is personal, which involves emotion. Benefits are often not comparable.
As embedded in culture. Sir Edward B. Taylor, founder of cultural anthropology, classically defined culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, beliefs, art, morals, law, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by a human as a member of society. Also, it considered the human experiences as interplay of nature, referring to genetic inheritance which sets the individual's potentials and nurture. With regards to social cultural environment, and there are components of culture, the material culture and the non-material culture. So, first is the material culture. It consists of human technology, all the things that people make and use, while non-material culture is inclusive of the intangible human creations that include beliefs, values, norms, and symbols.
Pantayong pananaw. It is a discourse within the indigenous tradition that was developed by Dr. Zeus Salazar, a history professor from the History Department of University of the Philippines, Diliman, and considered as the father of Pantayong Pananaw. It is a programmatic discourse developed as a response to the waterized perspective of the study of Philippines. It introduces a community based on theoretical innovation that is focused on the study and Philippine historiography.
Tayo, pananaw. It comes from the word pangtayo and pananaw. Tayo, which means we. The plural from the word first person pronoun and the prefix pan, which means for, while pananaw means perspective in English. It is understood as a single term. Pantayong pananaw means for us perspective, or in a modern translation, from us for us.
Salazar used tayo as a basis for the theoretical base of the perspective and not the pronoun kami, because according to Salazar that refers to we speaking to others, as opposed to the former which means we speaking among ourselves. The pantayong pananaw introduced a closed circuit of interaction, a context where discourse is carried on by and among Filipinos without the inclusion or interference of outside participant or dominant perspective who are unwelcoming to Filipino interests.